Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Now we are going to be looking at skill 11, use adjective clause connectors correctly. Okay, so my recommendation, like I mentioned back in skill or video number 9 of structure, is that you see skill 9 and 10 as correlated and 11 and 12 also as correlated. Now, if you remember, skill 9 has to do with clause connectors also, but in that case, we're working with noun clause connectors, right? Remember what you summarize into it. In this case, with skill 11, we're also going to be working with clause connectors, except now we're going to be working with adjective clause connectors. So what is an adjective, first of all? An adjective is anything that describes the noun, right? Or describes a thing, an object. So it's basically a descriptive, right? Describes noun or nouns. That's what we got to remember. And here we're working with a clause. So we're working with a group of words that are going to basically describe a noun, right? Or nouns. In this case, they're going to be describing nouns. We have two possibilities. We have, in this case, the first example, which uses an adjective clause. In this case, it is describing an object. Let's look at it. The woman is filling the glass that she put on the table. So my first clause is the woman is filling, right? The woman subject is filling verb. And then the glass is the object, right? Because it's after the verb. And technically the sentence could end there, right? I could put a period here. That's something important that we have to consider about adjective clauses. Adjective clauses are not necessary. And that means that adjective clauses can go on forever, right? The woman is filling the glass that she put on the table, that I gave her, that, and we can continue on and on. The same thing as we can describe something with an infinity number of adjectives, right? The green, tall, expensive book, right? Or yeah, we can keep adding adjectives, right? But adjectives are the color of the language, right? So they're going to give us a better idea of the characteristics. In this case, the characteristic of the glass, specifically what glass? The glass that she put on the table. Now, in this case, we are going to still be using a connector, right? That we're going to use a second subject and a second verb or a second clause, right? And all of this is going to be my adjective clause, right? Which is describing an object, right? The glass. Can I put this can I summarize it in it? No, I can't do this here. An adjective clause is not like a noun clause, right? A noun clause is a thing, it's a noun. So we can say it or they or them. But in this case, an adjective clause, no. An adjective clause is just extra information. So this is the first one. I can have it describe an object, or like in the second example, I can have it describe a subject. The glass that she put on the table contains milk. What is the original sentence? The original sentence here is the glass contains milk, right? That's my original sentence. This in between that she put on the table is extra, right? That's the adjective clause. The adjective clause is always extra. We can omit it and the sentence still works just fine. The glass contains milk, right? But here I want to describe a little bit more which type of glass it is, be more specific, give characteristics. The glass that she put on the table contains milk. Same thing, we're using that, a connector, we're using she, a subject, and we're using a verb, put. But see how this can be confusing, because here we have this verb first, right? And then this verb second, when in reality, this is the verb of the glass, right? So that's where it could be confusing. That's why you need to distinguish really clearly what is what belongs to what, okay? All right, so let's go then with an example. Here it says the gift selected for the bride was rather expensive. So right off the bat, we have to notice what? We have two verbs, right? Was and selected. When we have two verbs, according to the rule, we need one connector, right? Three verbs, 2 connectors, 4 verbs, 3 connectors, and so on. In this case, we have 2. We need 2 subjects, 1 for each verb, and we need a connector, right? So the gift, in this case, could potentially be a subject. The bride, no, because it's after 4. So this goes back to the skill of objects of preposition. The bride is an object of preposition because of 4, so it's not a subject. It could be the object that I'm going to describe, but it looks here that seems to be that the was is actually going to be the original verb, right, of the gift. So the gift was rather expensive, and this is going to be my extra information. So we need a connector and a subject. Because is only a connector, was is a verb, we don't need a verb. Since is only a connector, which we. So here we have a connector and a subject. The gift, which we selected for the bride, was rather expensive, and this one is correct. Yeah, here it says the best answer is answer D. Yeah, and sometimes we have the separation of these adjective clauses by commas, by parentheses, right? The gift, which we selected for the bride, was rather expensive, right? Sometimes in TOEFL, it's not going to separate it. So there aren't going to be commas or parentheses, but you need to know that it could be there, right? Okay, so let's look at the graph that contains the information of adjective clause connectors. So we have to remember here that these aren't that hard to remember because there are only 3. Whom is for people. For objects, right? Typically when we talk about for whom did you do that? In Spanish, it's kind of like para quién, con quién, de quién, right? For people. Which is for things, right? The book which you gave me. And that is for people or things, but plural, right? The difference between that and whom and which is that is plural, right? So if we're talking about people, it's like my friends that are here. I couldn't say my friends who, well, I could say my friends who are here, but it's also okay to use the plural with that, right? All right, let's look at the 2 examples. I like the book which you recommended, right? We have here the connector, which, and then we have the subject and the verb you recommended. So again, the sentence could end right here. I like the book, but I'm going to be specific. What book? The book which you recommended, right? Or it could be describing a subject, the book which you recommended was interesting, right? In this case, this would be my adjective clause, right? And the original sentence is the book was interesting. So here it says the adjective connectors can be omitted. The omission is very common in spoken English or in casual written. It is not as common in formal or in the structured questions of the TOEFL test. Yes. So here I could say something like, for example, I like the book you recommended, and eliminate the connector, which we're going to see later on in more advanced grammar, where we can omit these connectors. We kind of get a taste of it. I think we got a taste of it with skill 10, where but that's a connector subject. And we're also going to see it in skill 12, where the adjective clause is a connector and a subject. But yeah, here we could eliminate it, and it's good. I like the book you recommended, right? But it's not correct technically, okay? All right, so I think now we can go with the exercise. Yeah. Okay, so here for exercise 11, it says each of the following sentences, as usual, contains more than one clause. Yes. Underline the subjects once and the verbs twice. Circle the connectors. Put boxes around the adjective clauses just so we have them identified. And then indicate if the sentence is correct, C, or incorrect, I. Let's look at number 1 and 2, and then you can pause the video to do 3 through 10, and then we'll check it. Okay, so number 1 says, it is important to fill out the form in the way that you have been instructed. So we have it is in the beginning, we have that connector, you have been instructed, second clause, and that you have been instructed is my adjective clause. That's why it's in a box. Yes. And in this case, if we ask, what is it describing? The way, right? The way, because the way is a noun, right? So in this case, it's describing that noun, right? The way that you have been instructed. So it's correct. And number two, the car, which I have been driving for years, for sale at a really good price. So we have the car, which I have been driving, which connector I have been driving, clause, all of that, which I have been driving for years, is my adjective clause. But what's the mistake here? Exactly. We don't have a verb for the car. The car, which I have been driving for years, or which I love, or which whatever, or even admitted, the car is for sale, was for sale, will be for sale, right? We need a verb in this case. So yeah, it's missing a verb and it's incorrect. Okay, so now do number 3 to 10. Pause the video, please, and we will check it in a moment, okay? All right, let's check it. Number 1 says, I just finished reading the novel whom the professor suggested for my book report. So right off the bat, we have finish, who or what finished. I, whom is my connector. The professor suggested, we have suggested as my second verb. Who or what suggested? The professor. All of this is my adjective clause because it's just extra information about the novel. Where, what novel? The one that the professor suggested. Oh, but is it correct? No, it's not correct. Why? It's not going to be correct because it's using an incorrect connector, right? Whom is for people. In this case, yes, the professor recommended it, but we're not talking about the professor. We're talking about the novel. The novel that you recommended, or the novel which you recommended, would be correct. So yes, it's an incorrect connector. It could be which. All right, let's look at number 4. The plane that he was scheduled to take to Hawaii was delayed. Okay, so we have a verb here. Was, who or what was he. We have a connector, that, and then we have another verb over here, was delayed. I think this is the one where who or what was delayed, the plane. So the subject is all the way over here, right? The plane was delayed is the original sentence. And then all of this is going to be my adjective clause, that he was scheduled to take to Hawaii, right? That's the extra information, the adjective clause. Yeah, everything else is there. So this one is correct. Let me just check it. Yes. Okay. So number 5 says, the movie which we watched on cable last night, it was really frightening. Okay, so the movie, we have the first verb here, watch, who or what watch, we. We have our connector here, which, and then all the way over here, we have our verb, who or what was really frightening, the movie. So what movie? The movie which we watched on cable last night. Oh, be careful there. Look at that. There we have what? An extra it. Apparently we had all the elements, but because of that, it is going to be incorrect, right? We have an extra it that we need to omit. Yeah, extra subject. Okay, so it's incorrect. Let's look at number 6. I made an appointment with the doctor whom you recommended. So we have a verb here, I, who or what made, made, who or what made, I. And then we have the other verb here, recommended, who or what recommended, you. We have a connector here. And this is going to be my adjective clause. Now, if you ask me, is it correct to use whom? Yes, because I am talking about an object. I am talking about the doctor you recommended. For example, this could be exemplified in the sentence, you recommended him, you recommended her, you recommended the doctor, right? So it's the doctor whom you recommended, right? Normally we know whether to use who or whom because there is a subject already. Like in this case, you is the subject you recommended. So I'm referring to something else, the doctor that you recommended. So that's an object. And it has all its elements. Let me just check it. Yeah, it's correct. Okay, number 7 says, the enthusiasm with which he greeted me made me feel welcome. Okay, the enthusiasm where he greeted me, yeah, greeted is here. He greeted me is the clause, which is my connector. And then we have another verb here, and we have another verb here, right? And so the original sentence is the enthusiasm made me feel welcome, right? So we could say with which he greeted me. This one is a little bit confusing because it has with, but we are going to use with which sometimes as part of the connector. Now, number 7 is correct. But I know you're gonna say, well, how is that correct if we have 1, 2, 3 verbs and only one connector? It's because when we say something like this, made me feel welcome, we're actually using a different type of structure, right? In this case, we're using a double verb, like here, right? And in this case, it's a causative, right? Like, you made me come, you made me go to the party, right? I have to run to the store, right? So we have like double verbs. It's kind of like when we say, I need to buy, right? So we use, excuse me, we use need and we use buy. So in that case, that's what happens there. But yeah, it's correct. In this case, it's not necessary to use another subject or another connector. Yeah, so we use this with causatives, right? This is also the case with some structures, like when we say, I think you need to buy a new TV or something like that, right? So we use 2 verbs, 2 clauses, 2 subjects, but no connector, right? So in those cases, it is acceptable, right? But yeah, crazy English, right? Okay, so let's go with number 8. The story that you told me about Bob. Okay, so we have a verb here, told. Who or what told you? That is going to be my connector. And I'm thinking this would be the adjective clause that you told me about Bob. All of that would actually be my adjective, the story. So this is like number 2. It's incorrect because we're missing the next part, right? What story? Let me just verify. Missing verb could be was funny, something like that. The story was funny. The story that you told me about Bob was funny or something, right? So we're missing the verb in this case. Okay. And number 9, the men with whom we're having the discussion did not seem very friendly. So we're having who or what was having. Oh, see, here we already have our first mistake. So with whom or whom, we could say this is my connector. Did not seem very friendly. Who or what did not seem very friendly? The men, this is my original sentence. The men did not seem very friendly. So all of this is going to be my adjective clause with whom we're having a discussion, but it's incorrect because we're missing the subject with whom we were having the discussion, right? So we need the subject in this case for we're having, and yeah, it's incorrect. Okay, and number 10, I'm not really sure about taking part in the plans that we made last night. So we have here, well, this is my first verb. I'm not, right? And my subject, I. Okay, we have here made, who or what made, we. The connector is that. Okay, I'm not really sure about taking part in the plans. Yeah, all of that is just, it's okay. I'm not really sure about taking part in the plans, but here we're going to describe the plans. What plans? The plans that we made last night, right? So that's an adjective clause. It has all the elements, a connector, 2 subjects, 2 verbs. So it is correct. All right. Okay, very good. So we made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the video. Next structure class, very important that you see skill 9, 10, 11, and 12 for structure together because they're related and it's complicated. These topics are a little bit difficult. So it's very important that you see them together, you understand them, you study them, practice them. Yeah, so exercise or skill 12 is going to be an adjective connector subjects, right? So be on the lookout for that video. My next video is going to be on exercise or skill 11, but for reading, all right? So I'll see you then. I hope you have a great day. Bye.